as like comedians yourselves, as aspiring professional comedians, what is your take on kind of like the backlash Dave has been facing, and also the backlash or just the whole fallout of like the Will Smith smack?
I think Sean's the right guy to answer this.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair.
As a white guy, I choose to
Quickly,
omit-
defer.
That's fair.
No, because I don't.
But
Okay,
I also
so,
think
like,
Sean has a very
okay, yeah,
sophisticated
yeah.
view of the comedy landscape. He thinks a lot
thinking
about this.
especially like
Yeah,
being
yeah.
a man of color.
Sean's the guy for
Yeah,
this.
okay,
and men
got
of
it.
color in comedy.
I'll take a back seat on this one.
You guys can join in after or add. You're more than welcome to add. That's a tricky conversation because I do have my problematic ways myself. So there are times where I'm like, it's a joke, right? And we have to understand these people are telling jokes. But also, you never want to punch down. So in the Dave Chappelle aspect of things, some of those jokes I'm like, this is fucking funny. And it's not offensive in my opinion. This is just like funny. Or like funny perspective or like a turn on how things are. Or this happens with Tracy Morgan in my opinion too. He takes you on a ride where you're like, oh man, he's saying a lot of bad stuff right now that I'm not really with, until you get to the punchline of what the joke actually is. And then you're like, I see, I had to stick through with this whole bit to get to what the joke was, because that informs the punchline, right? And that's something I didn't understand crystal clear until seeing a Tracy Morgan stand up one time when I'm like, oh fuck, he's saying a lot of weird shit.
But do you think like Dave Chappelle falls into that category?
I
or?
think, well, because there's aspects of like ignorance within the specials, you know, you have to understand if you're going to be speaking on such a sensitive topic, and within ignorance in that, because like I said, some of those jokes I do think are funny, but some of them are ignorant and could be portrayed as violence if someone wants to feel so, you know, so much about it. And if it hits them, like, that is their experience, you know? So Dave should just be prepared of what he's going to get. And if he doesn't want the heat, try new jokes. Or what he should be doing is working with transgender comedians. So when he's doing these jokes, not only is like he got some weight on his side of people editing or being like, I don't know if you should say it that way, or like change,
Or that might be punching.
or that might be punching down, you know, in that regard. So then you could support the community that already thinks you're an enemy, and gain an ally in that regard, and also like learn how to. You know, I know you're one of the goats, Dave Chappelle, but they have a perspective you don't, and they could teach you new things about comedy, you know, that you don't have the opportunity to think about because you have your own glass ceiling. You know what I mean? So he has to work with some transgender comedians just to be smarter if he wants to use transgender jokes, in my opinion.
Okay,
You know,
I feel like that's a very
as
fair
far as Dave,
assessment.
as far as Chris and Will,
First
just,
name basis.
and again, this is just like my perspective. I don't know. Another thing is like I don't know these people personally.
Yeah, yeah.
So these are just like my takes that are also like me reading from a third primary source. Yeah. But Will and Chris being black men who have a familiarity to each other because they're both A-list Hollywood people who have probably interacted throughout the decades within Hollywood. So they probably have a repertoire to them. And there's an instance in the community where you know, where sometimes a dude gotta get slapped if he's saying the wrong shit or a wake-up call and things like that. That's just how, like, I don't know, sometimes that's how the culture is sometimes, you know? Is the Oscars the venue for it? No. You know what I mean? Did he have to slap? He could have shouted, keep your wife's name. He could have shouted from his seat. That's the same effect. You're stopping the show to get your point across, right? So that whole thing did need to happen that way. Do I understand where Will's coming from with the history of Chris banging, like bashing on his wife and whatever in those regards? Yeah, if you look at the history of that, there's some history there. But you don't go on stage and slap a comedian for telling a silly joke. It's the same thing with Dave. You know, like, obviously Dave has more controversy to him, but people running up on his stage, that's not how it goes. Just leave the show, you know? It's like when you don't buy these companies, let them feel it in their pocket, and they'll learn the lesson if enough people are like, damn, this dude is fucking up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I do also come from a place of a writer has to write what he's going to write, and I believe in freedom of speech. So I'm afraid of people being afraid to write.
Okay, I understand.
Just make sure, just have it edited by people that if you're going to talk about something you're not from, get some people who are from that so they could see if what you're saying is funny or playing in ignorance.
Okay.
Sorry, that was a long ass fucking thing.
No.
But I think
it's
about this
important to
every
talk about
day,
for
'cause
sure.
I'm paranoid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Because I would like follow that up with like asking, you know, you guys, the two white men to the left and right of you.
White Justins.
White Justice.
But I mean, I don't know. Do you guys ever feel like
they're also straight.
yeah, just in case you're wondering
bad-
how far
all
the
the bad
privilege meter
things,
goes.
right?
We're like up
I
here.
wasn't even thinking. I wasn't even thinking that.
It's an important
no,
thing
I'm just
to
gonna
note
say
about
I
these
mean,
white men.
How has I guess like working with your like peers that are not white and so forth kind of like change your like general view about how you feel like you should be processing the world, and especially in America, certain controversies involving race, gender, and socioeconomic privilege and like all those things. Like how has entering this troupe kind of like opened your eyes, if it has at all?
a really
were you
good
guys
point.
woke before?
I will say, like, when I was in college, one of my big activities where I was recruited to go to college to do this is competitive speech and debate.
Oh,
Which is
wow.
it's a very similar kind of community to sketch comedy, where you're working with a group, but there's also kind of the individual writing component to it. And I was on a team with a lot of people of very different mixed backgrounds. And something that I learned in that time that I tried to carry with me through this group now is, on most of those issues, I gotta just shut the fuck up and just listen. And so I just it's not so much that I'm afraid to take a stand one way or the other. It's more, I just don't know. And so I'm not the person to make the judgment call or have the opinion, have the take. So I'm just gonna listen and just see where people who've experienced these things are coming from. And I'm not the one to make the judgment call. That's where I'm at.
Justin, how will you follow up on Justin's statement?
I mean, like, same though. It's pretty much just that. I mean, when I entered college, I was raised Republican.
Oh, okay.
And yeah, I know, right? And I entered college, and I think it took me like 2 years to figure out that shit was fucked.
Was it the taxes? Did you just want good taxes?
Oh, I just wanted the great tax. Well, also my dad was like, global warming doesn't exist. Look at these 5% of scientists who are like, global warming doesn't
What was your
exist.
family doing in California? I gotta know.
Well,
Northern
again, they're like
California.
NorCal,
Like,
right?
what's
They're
going
like
on?
North
Yeah, they're
Cal,
NorCal. They're NorCal.
So like NorCal is definitely more like Republican than like SoCal.
Yeah, no. The
No, really,
school
yeah.
I went to was largely liberal.
Oh, yeah.
I was the asshole.
How can we make it hard for our son?
I was like, let me debate on whether global warming exists or not.
Okay, yeah.
That'll make me really cool. It didn't. But
That was not the move.
not the move. So I started turning my shit around throughout college, and I learned a lot from my roommate Daniel, who I love more than anything in the world. He's black, 6'4", and a beautiful man in general.
I wish I was
man,
black and
dude.
6'4". I'm like 5'9". And he's Daniel too.
Short King's
He's a
rep.
Daniel
Kings,
too.
yeah, he's a Daniel too. He got the better.
Yeah.
He got the better deal in the end. Yeah.
Yeah,
But you got the hat.
I guess. Yeah.
it's true. It's true.
His dad's like about half an inch, I guess.
I'm
yeah.
gonna need that hat afterwards.
Yeah,
I got
it's
someone I want
sweaty,
to give it
though.
to. Oh, he'll be fine with it. He'll be fine with it. Yeah. So I've just sort of learned from him, learned from my friends, learned from Sean, done marching, and I just want to help people.
Awesome.
That's very fair.
Even now, even as a straight man myself, Pride was the other day, and I went to a Pride to enjoy the celebrations, and I saw an anti-pro-life assembly, and literally in my mind, I'm like, I'm gonna park myself here and just listen and just hear what the hell they have to say, because this is my job right now is to be present and to listen and learn. And that's really awesome for you guys to recognize that in some of the conversations we had, where it's okay to not know things. It's okay to say, I don't have enough information or the perspective or whatever to be like, I'm not the person to make a concrete opinion, so I'm just going to sit back and just observe and listen and learn. That's and we come from an age where it's like the information age and the opinionated age, and we all have to give these takes because we feel we have to, but we don't. And there's a lot of power in not talking and just taking the information and then choosing yourself where it aligns for you, whether that's the personal truth or whatever,